who had no sin and never even thought of doing something apart from the Father. So, we can look at Jesus and say, that's what things look like when we're truly humans. And that's what, in verse 17 then, that's what it looks like in order that we may also be glorified. Okay? So, glorification is goal, right? It is the goal to bring us back to this experience in creation whereby we don't have sin hindering us in any way. We don't have the consequences of sin, which Paul's getting ready to talk about, in the world hindering us, apart from our own personal sin. And we walk and talk with God perpetually, only doing what we see Him doing and what we hear Him saying. This is what it will look like, the life of Jesus. Okay? So, your imagination can run wild with that kind of stuff, right? If you're a farmer and creation is against you, maybe I should save this conversation for after the next paragraph, and I probably should. How do you respond to that? In all of eternity. In all of eternity. Okay. So, any thoughts on that? Anybody think maybe I shouldn't ask that. Think I'm a crazy loon? Or did I?
Oh, man.
Huh?
Oh.
For my theological musings here.
112%. Is there such a thing?
Yeah.
In our terminology, we've always taught that it was Jesus doing those things. And what you're saying is God doing those things to Jesus. And
that's a hard distinction to make.
It is just different than what is taught.
Well, I don't think there's a hard distinction between one or the other in the first place, even if it was us doing them, God doing them. Of course, it's God doing them. But we're also kind of doing them too, right? If He says, take dominion and subdue, and we're doing stuff, and He's doing it through us, He's empowering us and enabling us, it's a hard distinction. I think that's a hard distinction to make. I don't think it's as engineeringly logical as maybe that. I don't know.
It's hard in our sinful humanness to pride, things like that, get in the from keeping you from truly thinking.
Yeah. If not the pride of, look what I did, then the pride of, well, look at how God favors me and did through me. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Inner thoughts. I will also say this. In the study of Scripture and the study of God, there's what I believe to be a proper sequence of things. And the first is exegesis. You take Scripture and you draw out the original meaning of Scripture. And you study this letter. What is the original meaning of that? And that's foundation. What is he saying? What did he say at that time to those people, and what specifically was he meaning? And then on top of that, you have interpretation, where you're interpreting it for our time, essentially. And then on top of that, then you have theology. You're taking that and you're giving it meaning for us right now in all things, okay? And then there's systematic theology, where you take what he says about this specific issue there, like John, Philippians, Romans, systematically how those things in all of Scripture come together, which can really be messed up if you don't get your exegesis correct in each one of those places. You can make any story you want to in that case. And then practical theology, how does this pastorally kind of translate to my life? Okay, so you can see in the way I teach, preach, is focus on the exegesis for myself in my study, and then interpret it and be very careful in the theology part of it. You know, like here, this is a kind of theological, what I'm doing right now. But I believe that, and this is encouragement to you all, is getting the foundation biblically, interpretively correct is the foundation for everybody. The whole Bible, the whole story, just keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming, and then reflect. You learn how, in your worldview, to connect the dots then and reflect on these issues with the whole Bible in mind. Okay? So, see, it helps to be provoked theologically, but it's something that you when you're driving down the road, you have time to think about, and pray about, and go back to these things. So anyway, I'm more right now in chapter 8, opening up theologically, because I believe it's a culmination of so many things here in chapter 8. So many things that are important to us. Okay, but you have to endure, the hundreds of trips down the highway that I was thinking there, right? Is what you're enduring now, so. Okay, so glorified, that's goal. That is a goal for us. Backing up to provided we suffer with him. Okay, that's kind of not a very pleasant way to think about that, but as we've talked about this, as we align ourselves with God instead of with the idols and the world, there's suffering that comes from aligning ourselves against those things in the world we live in. But now we're going to look at some suffering that's baked into the program, essentially. Okay? And I kind of a little bit regret, we got 10 minutes and I want to use them well. But there's a lot here that we won't get through. Verse 18. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory to be revealed to us. Okay, so as bad as it seems, it's hard for him to even describe what glorification is and what the glory is going to be like. It's going to take your worst day, your worst year, your worst issue, and it's going to, that compared to the magnificence of glorification, that's going to seem like that didn't even mean anything. It was nothing. As sick as I was, as broke as I was, as hurt as I was, that was nothing. That was nothing compared to the magnitude of the glory that I will enjoy. Okay? None of that will matter. Which gives us hope. Understanding that gives us hope and allows us to live in light of hope instead of in light of the suffering. If you keep these things in mind. 4. The creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. So he's personifying creation, as if creation is a personality here. And so what's creation doing? It's waiting, eagerly, anticipating. So you go out there and the trees and the corn and the whatever's in creation, it's like they just can't wait. All creation is for these millennia. They just can't wait. They long, what do they want and long for? They want and long for The revealing of the sons of God. Okay, so what does creation want? It wants to go back to the beginning. When God said to people, subdue and take dominion, and do it while you're walking and talking with me. And that is, if creation could speak for itself, they would say, that's what we wanted. That was so good. What was coming about through creation in our cooperation there with people and with God was so good in what was developing. And then this thing happened, right? This thing happened. And now ever since the thing happened, we've been waiting and longing. We're sick and tired of the way things are going. Creation wants it to go back to that thing that was in the beginning. For creation was subjected to futility. Okay? So, creation was initially subjected to a purpose, subjected to us, right? Subdue means be subject to. Creation was subject to us. It was subjected then to this purpose in us to be the caretaker, to develop, to take dominion in good ways, in ways that God led us to do. But now, it was subjected to futility. It was subjected to purposelessness. So for millennia, what creation initially enjoyed, if it could speak for itself, was lost, and it just wants it back. We're tired of this futility that's in creation. We're ready for it to go back to what it was. Not willingly, but because of Him who subjected it in hope that the creation itself will be set free from the bondage of corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. It all depends on us getting back in the right. Our glorification first, to be completed, and then creation's trajectory is going to be set back to right. Creation didn't choose this for itself, but unfortunately, for creation, it had to take a back seat, and it was subjected in hope, and the hope has to come about is once God has completed His program of glorification for His sons, now adopted sons as well, that after that's taken place, then creation can be set free from this bondage to futility and purposelessness that has been tolerating for all these millennia. So it looks forward to that. Trying to think about where to do what I'm thinking here. Let's turn to Genesis chapter 3. I'm going to connect some of these dots throughout Scripture. So I'll read it out of my English Standard Version first, which I think that most more modern translations don't quite get this right. Verse 17, 3:17, and Adam said, to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground. Out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Okay? So, I don't think that's quite right in the King James Version. Does anybody have a King James Version by chance sitting here? You do?
No.
Okay.
I can pull it up.
No, I got it right here, but I just wondered if anybody's reading of it. And I'm not a big fan of King James Version, but this particular way, and there's some places where I think they get it right, and some places where they don't, exactly, when you want to nitpick it, like I do. Not that it's a big deal. Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. Which in translation I think is more exact. So essentially it's saying is cursed is the ground for your sake. So this is what has happened now, where creation is subjected to futility, right? Here's where it happened. It's against us. It produces thorns, weeds, pestilence. It produces natural disasters, bad weather, unpredictable weather, droughts. It produces all these things. And it's for our sake. Why? Because what happens to us, what happens to other people, what happens to creation itself when we stop talking to God, but continue to exercise that unimaginable potential that God put in us to subdue and take dominion. What happens when there's no guardrail? Do you think that we would exploit? We do exploit. For the potential that we have, we exploit creation. We exploit people in creation for our own purposes. So at least there's a guardrail now that limits our ability, and its creation itself is against us. It's against us putting the brakes on what would otherwise happen. So God did this in hope, in hope to limit that, temporarily limit our potential, in hope that in the struggle, in the suffering, we would recognize our need to be aligned with God and come back to Him. Okay, I'm going to stop because I've got... We'll pick this up. So we went from Romans 8 to Genesis 3 to what's next. I'll write that on there for myself. And maybe it'll be there next week. Any questions before we bug out to the next thing? Okay.